The club itself was like a big black box. We got there early and there was like a big red beam of light hitting what was obviously the dance floor. Everything was dark.
Yeah. I take all this off at the end of the night and I go home and I've got a baby and a wife.
I think people would be pretty amazed to hear that. You live a straight line?
Oh, I don't know if you call it straight, but it's kind of straight.
The Viper Room. What I remember about the Viper Room.
It was amazing. It was at a time of incredible creativity within the gay and lesbian community.
Because it was like the 90s and Priscilla had happened and all this attention had become on drag.
How does it feel to be in sunny Sydney? Darling, I can't begin to tell you, I'm terribly excited for Melbourne, I'm terribly excited for Sydney.
And the Viper Room was a kind of anti what was going on at that time, which was that real polished drag, you know, the evening gown with the, you know, flowing hair and the gloves. But what Lance had wanted to do was something completely opposite to that.
Lance is always the head of the Viper Room.
Once in my life, Verushka Darling and I agree on something.
The promoters of the Beresford Hotel rang the newspaper I worked for and said, "You're very popular, why don't you do a club?"
Marriage vow, put it together now. You wanna make it stick together. Come on, let's stick together. Oh, you know we made a vow to leave one another never.
Everybody allowed everybody to be themselves. Nobody pulled anybody's reins.
So it was quite crazy. It was a bit punk, it was a bit experimental. You know, anything could happen. To bond together because, you know, we were still being killed left, right and centre. We were being thrown off the rocks at Bondi. You know, the crossbow killer was killing people at beats. And we were just coming out of that phase of, law reform and what have you, where we'd been illegal, where we'd been part of the subculture. And so we were very much at a time where, you know, it was us against the world. The Golden Mile was between Hyde Park, Oxford Street, all the way up to basically just past the Albury near the barracks. And that was the only place we were safe. So you go down a side street, you get attacked and bashed. You know, but on the Golden Mile, that was our community.
Start off at the Albury, go to Patches, go to the Exchange, go to trash, we do everywhere. The Viper Room.
It was such a trashy place. It was at the Beresford. If the young people were to look at it as what it looked like now, they would be curling their tail.
We lived together for 10 years, both of us. And we lived wherever we could for 10 years, but we lived with each other for 10 years.
We were really struggling from couch to couch.
I got thrown out of my home. my wife said, either you give up drink or you have to leave. And I couldn't give up the drink, so I left. And lived at the Beresford. And how I ended up there was that I just turned up at the Beresford one day, and Mathilde, who owned it, said, where are you living now? And I said, well, I'm not. I've got nowhere to live. And she said, well, you can come and live here.
Being stowed away in her place upstairs. I think I heard that Lance had asked for Pastel, or maybe Pastel had said, oh, Stryker could probably do something. This is what we did. If somebody had a job somewhere and there's an extra space, we got our mates in. That's what we did. It was living, it was surviving.
This is for those who mix the words of death, torture and suicide with scotch and soda at the bar. We all real decent people are very sharp. And when I say pussy now, you always think it's my smelly tuna and never my meow. And when I say prick, you're never looking for the needle, but only the throbbing gristle. And whenever you see me on my knees, you automatically think I'm giving you old dog head. Sure, I like animals. I want to dress up Washington wives in lace and leather and steel until the rose and ribbons of their gift. I want them to grow for more with their crisp nipples and the cool hotel air. Oh, fuck 'em, oh, fuck 'em, oh, fuck 'em. They so freaking not even their hairbrush, banging that butterspray, White House, X-Men, Tennessee. You're the no good. So they want to fuck off. Yeah, journalist, everyone knows politicians are bomb, fuck off, proper and suits and taxes. Woo, baby! Well, shit stinks too.
We were mobbed by people. Old friends of mine, like actually my little fans, was like crazy, and it got to us. It got to us. We drank and drank and drank, almost to death.
Which was like, you know, it got to the point where I was used so much. Get sending children, they're just like, you know, I'd done it all. It was time to just go and to dry out, basically. And I just created this whole new Cindy. She was like not like the old one. She was a new one. She was a bit tarnished and a little bit worn and a little bit bruised. And that's exactly what it was.
It was open, so we went.
Like everywhere else, you just checked it out.
Well, yes, but it had a certain had a certain
is whatever you make it, essentially. It can be political, you can be serious, you can be emotional, you can be, you know, funny. It's, you know, your limits are your imagination. I kind of like to think of Lance, and I don't know how he would feel about this, but kind of like a male impersonator.
I really thought that it was all just show, and I was going to get to the, you know, that's what I thought. I would get to the nitty-gritty, finally, you know, see what this Lance had got. It was no different. He said, what? At least this is me.
He was quiffed, he had, you know, foundation, he had eyeliner, he had lip gloss, he had, you know, the full leopard experience. So he was just like us. We were all doing drag. He just happened to be a boy doing boy drag.
All your friends that you know and love. There was that whole scary thing we used to refer to as the Darlinghurst flu, which took so many, and so in your face, and your friends were dying. There was, it's hard to talk about in a way. I remember a feeling in the air, and everybody felt it, whether you mentioned it or not, whether you spoke about it or not. There was always, at one point, there was 3-4 funerals every weekend. Every weekend. The whole thing, we had to cling to each other. There was no
way that any of us could have done it sober. That's why everyone was just bloodless. Numb that horrible feeling that we had of all that loss and everything. What was a better way than to take drugs and to lose it for, you know, a few hours or a couple of days or whatever.
The performance of the day back then, of course there was all this horror thing going on, but also the antidote. We were the antidote.
We made people happy, and that's what we wanted to do. We had no time for grief. Not at all. We were there to make people happy.
Chrissy Amphlett, but it kept ringing in my mind because there was this incredible queen called Adrian Barker that Chrissy Amphlett had actually met and said, well, what do you do? And he said, I impersonate Kylie Minogue. And Chrissy Amphlett said, it's good to see you making money out of somebody else's sweat.
One night I had leg warmers on and scruffy old stilettos and Fabergé jeans that was like my ass was hanging out and I just looked like the biggest dog, and someone threw a beer can at me and I was like, I've hit the jackpot. And that actually felt like an Oscar to me.
Please hang up and try again. In 1995, I was a chef. Straight sort of job, you know. I needed the weekend to let my hair down, and therefore I sort of went towards that sort of people, like the Lance of this world, the Verushka of this world. Even so, homosexuality was still, you know, some of the bars were a bit underground. I did find that we were a lot freer to express ourselves. And now drag is a very RuPaul sort of drag race, you know, based on makeup and femininity. When at the time, you know, just to quote again Verushka, you know, Verushka wore her own long hair and sort of like a very mixed gender outfit, as I did. You know, I often never didn't wear a wig.
Tonight. The name is Run Blank Run, and the song is called
And then I went up to Oxford Street to have a look at the parade. Biggest mistake I ever made. As I went further up, just in front of the parade, beyond the flinders, I got through and I stood there watching the rest of the parade go by. All of a sudden, my head went so hard. And I looked at the girl next to me and I thought I was saying, "Why did you do that for?" But what it sounded like was... And my head is exploding. Swelling up so bad. There was a ring in my ear. I couldn't stand it. I came home. 4 hours later, I could hear. But 3 years later, living upstairs at Beresford, upstairs from the Viper Room, I'm sitting at the bar one day. Nobody else was in. Then a few people came in across the bar, and they're all talking. And I was so horrified, I said across the bar, "Excuse me for eavesdropping, but did you say you got shot at Mardi? And they said, "We all did. There was 3 of them." And I said, "Where's that Mardi Gras?" And they said, "No." And they said, "A few years ago." And I'm going, "Whereabouts?" And they said, "Just beyond Flinders, standing on an island on the road, watching the parade." That's when I realised I'd been shot in the head at watching a Mardi Gras parade. And it was 3 years later that I realised that's what it was. Right here.
There was no bullet lodge?
It was one of those aircoat things.
Oh, right.
But there was a sniper up there near Warren D. Maria's antique business.
Yeah.
So we had to come together to survive in so many different senses. So, you know, it was this amazing kind of like collection of really oppressive instances that kind of like bore down on us and produced diamonds from the pressure.
But yeah, the entertainers, even some of them themselves, gone. But that was where we looked to keep us strong and together, and it worked.
feel quite old, even though I'm not, when, you know, kids go, oh, I went out and had a wild night. And you just think, but did you? And I know it's relative. And for them, it was. But until really, you know, you get bored of seeing someone pulling, you know, a skeleton out of someone's arse, or lesbians, pissing rainbows from a human lesbian vaginal pyramid, and you go, oh, not again. It's kind of like not the same thing, really. You know what I mean?
You know, people upstairs, they had the roughest recovery party in Sydney. And there were people being shot, and it was gangsters. And
even though there were a lot of clubs, they all operated under restaurant licenses. So you would turn up to a club, and often the security would say, you know, do you intend to eat? And you'd go, yes, even though you had no intention of eating whatsoever.
The police had been dying to close it down.
But the police had to announce when they were going to do a bit of a raid or a walkthrough. So they'd come to the front of the bar, and there'd be someone sitting at the front, and under the table, it was like a speakeasy, they'd have a switch, and you'd be out the back, and the person would flick the switch. So the lights would flash in the back room, and we'd know we're going to get raided. So we'd turn the DJ off, we'd turn the lights off in the room, we'd stop our shows if we're in the middle of it. We might even drag a lounge onto the stage, and then the police would come, we'd walk through, sitting there with our drinks very casually. They'd go, oh, nothing's happening, and they would
nothing
walk out.
to see here.
Exactly, nothing to see here. And then they would leave through the same entrance, and then the person at the door would flick the switch, the lights would flash, we'd take away the furniture, we'd get back up on stage, and the show would keep on going. It was hilarious. Hilarious.
Something happened because they walked in there and Christy McNichol was doing a number and she was nude.
You can come here again on Friday night and go to Las Vegas with me with Christy McNichol stripping and a roulette wheel.
They were flashing these mag light, you know, those like massive torches, and I started like moaning into like the spotlight was on me, like
every week, the fabulous Lance Leopard. Lance Leopard.
A lot of people did their first shows. People did their last shows there. They were slightly off the beaten track. Had to walk an extra block to get there. My opening night guest star was the fantastic Victoria Bitter.
The Viper Room, it's good to be back. And fuck you all! I'm in this world. Somebody kill me.
I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I realised on the spot that I have to learn how to sing. I wondered who turned up. It's my friend Stephen Devine, the astrologist, turned up, and I said, "You'll do the lights." It was a family affair. It was a different world before the computers, the international superhighway, and that's fine. It was a different world before the Titanic sank. And I'm sure it had a nightclub on it of sorts.
And it went down with the ship?
Well, it was fashionable because it closed after 6 months. Well, it wasn't like a vice raid. The lights came up. Right. Christy McNichol stopped stripping and ran to the public bar and told to stop playing music. And I said, "What is the meaning of this?" And they said, "You don't have an entertainment license." And I said, "I don't own this hotel." And I was happy about it.
Did you say that Christy was stripping, not entertaining?
She was stripping to an Olivia Newton-John song. I wanted to be a film star, but I realised I couldn't be a film star because I was gay.
You're the worst actor in the world.
Now slap me when you say it. Slap me hard.
You're the worst actor in the world.
No, slap me after you say it.
You're the worst actor in the world.
So I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a party to like the party and breakfast at Tiffany's. That was my only ambition. I think I realised my ambition, so I'm happy. The all Beresford. It was not much. And it was, you did it there because there was no one else like there at the time. And
do you miss the Viper Room? Do you miss those days?
No. I like to visit the past, but I don't want to live there.
Viper Room was very punk in a strange way. The punk movement will come back. You can see it in fashion, you know, everything comes back. So it just takes someone to open a little club where people can just go and perform and be a little bit more out there.
I always hope to be performing in some form or other, you know, as a drag performer. And, you know, my drag may change, my act may change, my format may change, my media may change. But I love change. It's what keeps us alive.
What is past is prologue, and there we remain.
And that's how it was. And it was